Welcome. Hi, I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and well-being. And I'm delighted that you're here. Morning everyone, hope you're having a fabulous week and welcome back to Mikkipedia. I'm Mikki Williden, obviously the host of the show, and I get to chat to so many awesome people. And this week on the show I sat down again with my mate Paul Laursen, and we talk all about HIIT science, which is Paul's textbook and course that he has developed alongside his colleagues that help educate coaches, exercise physiologists, anyone who's interested in how HIIT science can be used properly to enhance and optimize training of athletes. So that's such a fun conversation. We also talk about athletica.ai, which is Paul's artificial intelligence informed training platform whereby you can sign up and get some really individualized coaching advice without actually having to have a coach, which it doesn't take the place of a coach as Paul and I talk about, but it definitely provides a service for people who really want to help enhance and optimize their training. So we talk about athletica.ai, and then we also talk about any updates on COVID-19 and metabolic health. And if you recall, in the third episode of Mikkipedia, Paul Laursen and I have a really good conversation into that paper, which was really awesome. And if you didn't catch it, if you're still catching up, that episode was the third published in Mikkipedia on I think mid-November 2020. So absolutely go back and listen to that if you haven't already listened to it. So, for those of you who need a bit of reminding or are unfamiliar, Paul Laursen is the former lead of physiology for the New Zealand Olympic athletes and adjunct professor of exercise physiology at AUT University. However, now he is based in Canada, where he contributes to research studies in his academic capacity and is the co-founder of the online course HIIT Science, which is also a textbook, as I mentioned, where thousands of people are learning how to apply the science of HIIT training to achieve better sport outcomes. He is a renowned specialist in that high intensity interval training, low carb diets, ketosis, heart rate variability, thermal physiology, health and artificial intelligence. And we touch on most of those topics in today's episode. So there is definitely something for anyone interested in health, nutrition, well-being and artificial intelligence. And he is, as I'm sure you appreciate and know, he's an accomplished athlete in his own right. And we sort of kick off our conversation by him sort of telling me a little bit about his background and how he got interested in the area. And it sort of came from a failed triathlon attempt. And he is a coach as well. So he coaches both professional and age group athletes. And you can find Paul over on his website, www.paullaursen.com. That's LAURSEN.com. So please enjoy my conversation that I had with Paul Laursen. Oh, kia ora, Prof. How are you?
I haven't heard those words in a long time. I'm doing well, thanks, Mikki. Yeah, kia ora to you too.
Yeah, do you know, it's interesting, because for so long you were just resident of New Zealand. You just showed me your Kiwi passport.
Yes.
But right now you are domiciled back in, I want to say, I can't even, you've in that little kind of ski town in Is it BC?
Yeah, you got it. You got the province. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ski town is called Revelstoke.
Revelstoke, there you go. Actually, I was just thinking, Revelstoke, brilliant.
It's a place to hang out, that's for sure.
That's great. And cross-country skiing for you right now, Paul, or is it? Oh, actually.
Oh, no, that's yours. No, we're going mountain biking. Actually, I didn't tell you about this, but I had a massive stack mountain biking the other day, and went off a kicker of a jump. I'd love to say that I pulled a nice tail whip and all, but I actually I didn't. I landed poorly off the line. on a rock, basically on my back, broke 3 ribs.
Holy!
Compressed T4, 5, and did a lacerated kidney. So I was very lucky, Mikki. So that was 10 days ago.
Oh my God, Paul, how are you feeling? That is crazy.
I feel a lot better now, but I tell you, I don't know if you've ever had a broken rib. It is not a fun injury to have, though. Like, sleeping is not fun. But I'm starting to feel better now after about 10 days and whatnot. So.
Oh my God, ribs are the most painful thing. So I've had a cracked rib like when I was very young, but more recently is getting something happen to the intercostal cartilage of the ribs, and they're just breathing, like impossible to breathe, like the most painful sort of experience. Yeah. See, those kind of injuries, I mean, not that I need any reason to sort of not get on a mountain bike, because I could find all the reasons in the world. Like, it just doesn't happen for me. But what you've just described really affirms why I never go near anything like that. Like, because then that would stop me being able to run, Paul. And then where's the fun in that?
So much fun though. So I mean, I'll definitely be back on it as soon as I can, and as soon as it's realistic to get back on there. I'm down.
Oh, that's good.
I just love it. I actually, this year has been a terrible year for injuries. And in the winter, I did my ACL as well when I was backcountry skiing. So and I'm scheduled for surgery in November, which is again a bit of a bummer. So it hasn't been a good year for injuries for me, but it's, you know what, that enables me to do lots of other work, like podcasting and working on some other projects that I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Well, there you go. There is always a silver lining. I did actually hear on a most recent podcast that when you say you're starting to get these injuries, I'm like, I wonder if that's an age thing. Because Paul, despite your youthful appearance, you've been several times around the sun.
There's probably something there for sure.
Yeah. Now, just before we sort of kick off, because I really want to talk to you today about your background, how you got into HIIT. I want to talk about HIIT because I'm super interested in it and its application for people like me, endurance, trail running, ultra endurance, that kind of thing. And then, of course, talk about athletica.ai. But with regards to your injury, are you on the collagen and vitamin C? Are you on that protocol?
You know what? I'm not, Mikki. I probably should. I need to talk to you about that. I'm a little bit of a, I think, I'm an LCHF, and even kind of with a carnivore slant. So I'm very
interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I hate even using those sort of terms, those camps. I really like Rob Wolf's sort of standpoint in his last book that he did with The Sacred Cow. And he says, really, we should be nutrivores, and so I'm really just I really just try to make sure that I've got the maximum nutrients that I'm getting. But I'm wondering if I'd be depleted in vitamin C. I'm not sure. I don't.
Well, just because it's more about the fact that the amino acids that are in the collagen peptides conditionally essential, particularly glycine, and so because it is part of our overall kind of musculoskeletal tissue, and it helps form all of it. Like the studies around collagen and sort of wound healing and things like that show that they're case studies, so it's not like clinical trials, and they're sort of petri dish or cell culture studies, but it does show an enhanced healing when you take 15 grams of collagen plus about 50 milligrams of vitamin C together. And you take it about an hour before you do any sort of movement around that joint area, because that then allows the amino acids to sort of peak in the bloodstream. And so, and then of course you do some movement in the area, so however you might move around your ribs and whatnot, and that will sort of direct those amino acids to that site of injury, and that vitamin C is taken up into the cells and used to help with that collagen sort of synthesis. And it's and again, it's case study stuff. You mentioned your ACL, and there was a really good case study around I believe it was a footballer who used this protocol plus a particular rehab protocol. I'll send you the paper. I'll try and find it again.
I think I know the researcher as well. He's in Bond University, right? And he's it's the one. He's called me because we're an ACL capital basically in the world with all the skiing injuries, and we're looking at potentially collaborating on with that, because it's basically a brace method. So post ACL injury, you put your knee in a brace at, for X amount of time at this angle, X amount of time at this angle, X amount of time at this angle, and lo and behold, it regrows, which has never been shown before.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
So and if I had found that out, right after my injury, as opposed to 6 months later, I would have been a candidate for it. But now it's I haven't regrown an ACL, and I've got to go have the surgery to reinsert a hamstring tendon in there instead. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, so I'll send you just the details about that protocol. Like, the thing is, even within your Nutrafol diet, there's always room for more collagen. Like, you're not gonna, and I don't think it's certainly not going to do you a disservice, at least. And lots of people, and again, it's all anecdotal as well, but a lot of people say that it really helps them. Helps joint pain, something for you to consider given your advanced years. And just kidding.
No doubt. Yeah.
And just with their injury and stuff. And vitamin C has long been known to be like essential for healing tissue and stuff. Linus Pauling, this is. Have you been on the Linus Pauling sort of site? It's now sort of part of a university.
I haven't, no.
And it's a little bit I'm not going to say conspiracy theorists, because it's not. It's just that there are people who disbelieve that something like vitamin C could be as effective as what Linus Pauling suggested it was. But again, so much, like we talked last time about COVID-19, and we didn't talk about treatment in and around sort of reducing the severity of symptoms as much as we did about metabolic health, which is something that I'd like to revisit, sort of your thoughts at the end of what we discussed with HIIT and whatnot. Yeah. Just its utility in so many different areas in human health. Like, I don't know, vitamin C for the win as well, just in general.
Nice. Yeah. Isn't it Sean Baker is the carnivore guy? And I was listening to a podcast with him and Ivor Cummings. And he was talking about that too. And it's like he feels he's in pretty good health and knows that he helps. And where would the vitamin C kind of be coming from? I have no idea. In a carnivore kind of diet, have you ever, like, if people like that are getting success on that diet, how can they be healthy if there's no vitamin C in that? I'm not sure. Or maybe there is vitamin C. I don't know if there's vitamin C in meat per se.
Yeah, do you know, that's a really interesting question, Paul, and I wish that I was able to answer that, because somewhere in my mind as well, I've heard there is something about there's something about the meat that's not vitamin C per se, or there is vitamin C, but it breaks down. It's just the way you eat the meat that is different. I don't know. Or the requirement for vitamin C is lower because you're only eating meat, is potentially some other avenue by which you're not running deficient. I think that's something. Also, lime juice. Maybe they incorporate some lime juice in their Nutrivore diet.
I do that, actually. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So maybe that's an avenue with which the avenue with which they get it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I was reflecting on your comments about the amino acids and the collagen, and that's like, so liver is probably a staple in my diet, and I know that a lot of people sort of frown on that. You develop a taste for it, but we've got I've got a source of free range cows and whatnot that's just close to my house. And
awesome.
And again, you look at Rob Wolf's book, The Sacred Cow, like that's the highest density of nutrients ultimately. That liver. It ranks, like it almost doubles, I think, beef, which is high there as well. So that and oysters or sardines are kind of staples in my diet. So you get the omegas as well, and zinc.
That's awesome. And the other thing, Paul, is if you the collagen is sort of forms part of that gelatinous part of the meat, and so any joint that you eat, bone, something which, and of course chicken skin, that's going to have it, fish skin from your like sardines, and the little bones as well is the other way you get your collagen. But even like gnawing on bones, I don't know if you necessarily do that.
For sure.
So do I. And and it's funny, like Barry, husband, obviously laughs at me because I'm like sitting there with this like chicken drumstick, and for the most part it should look like a bone when you finish with it, but mine just looks like a bit of a stick, because I'm like, that bit, that's soft enough to eat, that's how you get those that additional collagen in, just through the food that you eat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing all those things. I guess what I'm not mainstreaming, vitamin C pills or, oranges or,
it could be worth, and particularly post your ACL surgery as well, just getting that supplement, and just, again, nothing to lose with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Food for thought.
Thank you. So, Paul, interesting sort of where your diet has evolved to now compared to where I've heard you describe it started. And I just want to I want you to sort of relay how you sort of got into the field of your HIIT research, in part because I've heard you describe yourself as a bit of a failed triathlete back in the day. Like, I'm thinking, was it early 2000s or late 90s or?
Yeah, no, it was late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Mate. You are old. No, I'm just kidding. So, can you sort of take us back to the time where you were like really interested in triathlon and succeeding, and sort of how that then developed your interest into your research pool? Take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, sir. So I grew up as a young boy, following my dad around when he was quitting smoking and running marathons instead. So I just developed an aerobic engine from a young age, and then, I guess really got interested in triathlon. And triathlon was just, in the 80s, it was just starting to become a little bit more mainstream, and not it was still looked upon as being pretty crazy. And then there was, in that time as well, there was talk that it was one day going to be in the Olympics. So I really got that bug and wanted to, maybe be representing, my country as a young person there at that point. And then that dream, just never manifested. So failed athlete. And I guess sparked the whole curiosity for science. Like, well, I've got to be able to, I got to study this then, first of all, to better my own potential performance, but then also as a career to help others in the future as well. And then that led me to all my different sort of studies. And then, I guess that led me to my PhD at the University of Queensland. I won a scholarship over to UQ. And the question that I came up with was, what's the best, high intensity interval training strategy to get the most bang for buck? And that was the whole foundation of my PhD. And I looked at manipulating the different factors, like, how hard the exercise bout should be, how long the exercise bout should be of a HIIT session, how long the recovery should be, how long the, or how, intense the recovery period should be. All the different factors. I mean, there's almost an infinite number. We kind of made a stab at that throughout the thesis, and that continued to evolve after the PhD, because then I met my colleague Martin Bescheid and he came and visited me in Perth when I was a prof at ECU, and he was kind of on the same question, except he was taking it from the team sport aspect. And long story short, we kind of combined forces in a bunch of research for a long time, and then put a couple lit reviews together. That came in and eventually evolved into our book, which is The Science and Application of High Intensity Interval Training. Always got to have the Prof, Mikki.
I love it. It's like a doorstop. It's massive. Who would have thought that HIIT, something like HIIT, which is so prevalent now in terms of just, how people understand kind of training approaches and stuff, has evolved from research that you've done, and it now kind of exists as this massive like textbook, Paul.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, for sure too, because it's the science and application. That's the whole thing. So, and this is what we're always saying. So there's a lot of science that goes into HIIT in terms of understanding how you can pull the different levers of the intensity, duration, recovery stuff. But then as we always say, context is God, really. Like it's the key aspect. It's like, sometimes, you can't fit a square peg into a round hole, right? Like you've got like certain elements of HIIT just aren't going to fit in certain programming puzzles ultimately. Like certain contexts, they just don't fit. So in the 20, we have got like 20 different practitioners that come in and they tell us how they apply HIIT in their context. As expert practitioners and coaches. So that's why it's such a thick book.
Yeah. So when you started, Paul, did you actually think you were going to find the answer and there would be one answer? Like, this is the way.
Well, maybe when I think I did. I think if I can actually reflect on, I started my PhD in 2000. So 21 years ago, I guess I probably did think there'd be sort of a little bit more of an ultimate answer. And then it was like, wow, quite the rabbit hole. It's like, oh wow, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, for sure. So if we just sort of I guess take a step back, what is HIIT? Like, I've heard, like, as I understand it, this was something that was developed, like, even though it's sort of popularized now, it was developed almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, totally. We've got chapter 1 really just goes into the history of it. And it's important to recognize because it's been around since the 1900s, early 1900s, where coaches were experimenting with it with their athletes to get success. That's really where it sort of started in the area of track and field.
Yeah.
But I guess it's, continued on but more mainstream in the last maybe only just 10 years, really. With the media and the internet and the CrossFit, evolution or rise up, and it's thought of as different things. Now it's kind of thought of as doing push-ups and doing mixing strength training with it and doing CrossFit exercises and stuff. And that's not what HIIT's all about, and that's certainly not what we focused on in the book. We've really gone into metabolic conditioning. Yeah. So how can you pull the levers of high intensity interval training to get the most bang for buck for your session, the most appropriate bang for buck for your session, from a metabolic standpoint. More than anything, we do touch on a lot of the neuromuscular strength aspects. That's part of our puzzle, but it's mostly metabolic, aerobic, anaerobic sort of systems. Yeah. Because I think that's probably our forte, and that's really what we focused on in our research.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously I've come across it in both of those arenas, like just in that sort of popular kind of fitness space. It is very on trend and has been actually for a couple of years, and HIIT's what you do to get more bang for your buck with regards to fat loss and strength gain, and you've only got 10 minutes to do this HIIT activity, but the type of HIIT that you're describing is much more oriented towards becoming better, faster, stronger in the sport that you play, isn't it? And it's quite specific. There are, as I understand it, quite specific protocols for different sports. Would that be right?
Yeah, well, we take a physiology first type approach, a context first approach. But that's like the physiological target should form the crux of where you're trying to kind of line up in your program. Yeah. So so how hard you go on a session, really, and how long, at least in terms of the work bout, that really dictates that. I guess the biggest response that you're going to first sort of get. Yeah. So maybe I've lost your question.
No, that's good. No, because are there 6 different types of HIIT, Paul?
Yeah, 6 different HIIT types, we call them.
Yeah. Can you sort of outline them for me? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. So the first, so this is where it gets, we get a little bit into the weeds with the different HIIT types, but basically how you pull those levers, and let's call them 3 levers.
Yeah.
Let's just introduce the 3 key levers. So we've got an aerobic lever, right? So how much aerobic metabolism you want to add to the session, right? So think about your heart, your cardiac output. Think about causing your muscles to develop more mitochondria so that they're fatigue resistant and burning more fat. So that's sort of your aerobic. That's your aerobic lever. And then you've got the anaerobic lever, which is the second one. And that is, think about the muscle, like the burning feeling that you get. Think about the blood lactates that's spilling out. Think about the sugar that's being burnt. And then the third lever is the CrossFit one that we kind of spoke on. It's really the neuromuscular response. So think about maximal recruitment. Think about muscle damage that you might get and soreness lingering. Those are the 3, if we simplify HIIT, those are the sort of the 3 targets that we can get. Now, depending on how you skin the cat, we like to say sometimes with our HIIT our programming, depending on how you form the session, the format, you'll get different degrees of aerobic oxidative, anaerobic glycolytic, or neuromuscular response. So type 1 is you're just pulling the aerobic lever. Type 2, you're pulling the aerobic lever and the neuromuscular lever. Type 3, you're pulling the aerobic lever and the anaerobic lever. Type 4 is all guns blazing. So it's like a massive, sprint workout with muscle damage. And type 5 is without an aerobic component. So it's just lactic and neuromuscular. And type 6 is just a strength or speed workout where there's no aerobic or anaerobic kind of component. So very short and sharp.
Yeah.
Gym kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, Paul, if I think about running, obviously because that's the sport that I do, what are the most important types for someone like me who is a, I'm going to say a wannabe ultra runner? It's so funny how you just don't own what you've already, like I've done, like someone would say, no, you're an ultra runner because I've done like a handful of events over the marathon distance, but I still don't quite own it.
What distance have you gone?
Well, so my most recent distance is 50K.
Cool.
But I do have it. So in my calendar, I've yet to enter, but I'm about to enter that race again in Topor. And it's very much a runner's course. Like it's very, it's a great one if you enjoy running because it's not a lot of hiking, it's not a lot of vert. But I have actually, and I haven't really said much about this yet because I'm very good at entering something and then pulling out. So I've sort of kept it a little bit quiet, but I have entered the Tarawera 100 in February, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. 100. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm really curious if you reflect on your 50, how does another 50 feel, or to your brain, to your mind?
It feels overwhelming. So, this is, I in fact have scheduled a course with a talk with Simon Marshall, who wrote the book, The Brave Athlete, because the problem is that my problem is always in my head, right? So it's a couple of things. Not only is it the fact that I enjoy running and given the opportunity, I will overdo it because that is, but I have gotten smarter over the years. But I do know that is something which I have to be mindful of. More is not always better. Equally, though, I can talk myself out of anything. It's super easy to justify not actually going through with something, just as much as it's so easy to, on a lovely kind of Tuesday afternoon in the sun, hit enter on any sort of what then seems to be crazy idea, because you're just sitting around. So of course the idea of doing 100K, sweet, I'll just train for that, be fine. I think I can do it, but it's just actually getting to the start line and feeling as fit and ready as I know I could. And it's getting that right balance. And is it applicable to do HIIT in these types of events as part of the build-up and training? What are your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely, for sure. Yeah. So, and again, I get a lot of this insight from my colleague, Martin Bescheid, who's done a lot of these ultras. And for sure, he would use HIIT training to and also a lot of strength training as well to prepare for a lot of the downhill aspects, right? And the muscle damage that you're going to get.
Yes.
So you'd have aspects of the HIIT training for both. You'd be working to certainly working on your metabolic stuff.
Yeah.
Not as much the anaerobic, I don't think, but sort of like type 2, we call it, sessions. So where there's an aerobic and a neuromuscular. Those are going to be your key elements. You would want to, if I was thinking about it from a physiological standpoint, I would want to have a maximal aerobic system. So ability to burn fat all day for an ultra. Big engine as well. So big power in your cardiac output. And I would have to have a really strong chassis. So really good shocks and shocks and springs on my chassis, and you get that through your neuromuscular. So your downhill running, your strength training as well in the gym, so that your muscles are really going to be able to handle that repeated eccentric loading ultimately that you're just inevitably gonna have to handle for that length of time.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I'll just like the final thing on that, again, back to Martin. Martin describes 2 experiences. He did a 150 ultra, and it was on this island. I forget, it's his famous one in one of the French islands, I believe. I can't remember the name, but he describes his experience one time not doing any of the HIIT stuff and the neuromuscular training that I mentioned. He was out for like a week after. He couldn't walk for a week. He was just and then when he did all of the HIIT and the strength sort of training for it that I described, he was pretty much walking around the next day, no problem. So it was
amazing.
Night and day.
Yeah. Do you know the most recent experience is at 50K, where there wasn't a lot of that eccentric sort of down or load, but prior to that I'd done the Tarawera 60, and I hadn't trained. That was the second time that I'd done it, and I hadn't trained a lot of downhill, and I really noticed, because the last 15K is completely runnable, and it's mildly undulating is how I would describe it. Could not run because even then, as early as that, I damaged my quads from all of the eccentric work. So it wasn't even like a case of delayed. It was like rapid onset muscle soreness. It was ROMs, not DOMs. God, it was, and there was a lesson to me. It was like, I really need to do something different next time going into it, because of course for trail running, so you've got the load with regards to the number of hours you need to spend training, but also it's, how do you add HIIT in, or something in that is going to protect you from injury? And obviously HIIT overall will protect you from injury because you become a stronger athlete. But at the time, I'm like, if I add intensity to duration, that's like, for someone like me, that's a sure recipe for injury. So how do you protect yourself against that? Because that's my concern.
Well, you do an appropriate amount of intensity is the short answer. So we're all individuals at the end of the day, right? But we can all benefit from like higher intensity work. And the key aspects of why that is relates to, we touched on it, but you get this larger muscle recruitment. So I know you're a diesel engine, you go all day, Mikki, but inside that diesel engine, there's at least a couple fast twitch muscle fibers, right?
You reckon?
And, right. So you've got to, if you touch on those every once in a while from a higher intensity, you're going to make them more oxidative. You're going to make them, which is actually a good thing because they still remain as powerful. But you're making them more fatigue resistant. So back to your question, you want to touch on that for a little bit. And then another key principle of HIIT science is that you always want to walk away from that HIIT session, however you're skinning it, but you always want to walk away like you could have done 1 or 2 more, sets or reps or whatever, depending on how it was. And that was, again, back to the history. That was what the coaches were always telling their athletes. It wasn't, you don't go to the well on your HIIT session. Like you might see people doing and they're CrossFits or whatever, like that's not an appropriate workout, because then you can't back up the next day.
Yeah.
The key thing for training is training consistency. So you should always leave that like you could have done more. So even in yourself, or name your athlete that you work with, Mikki. It's like you still, like, a little bit touching on in the program in the week is usually appropriate. There's contexts where that's not, where it's just a person getting off the couch. Maybe we want to have a little bit of a base first, but you can always do at least, usually a 1 rep is not going to hurt a person. And then it could be up to, when we're talking about our elites, they can do six sets of 10 30-30s, and like it's quite a lot of work, but it's like they've progressed up to that over the length of a career. I
listened to Zach Bitter talk about his training. I don't know if you've sort of followed any of what he does, but he does a bit of, certainly some kind of shorter intervals, like the 30-30s that you just sort of described. He does longer ones as well, but he sort of kicks off his training with, which he sees himself as a little bit turning it around to what people might normally do. Like, he starts with the shorter, sharper stuff and then gets a little bit more specific as he leads on into his race, doing things like 30-30s or 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And he actually describes it as you've just, said, like, it's not an all-out effort, in that he leaves everything out there because he has to run again either in the afternoon, usually, or the next day. He needs to leave something a little bit in the tank. Do you think that's where people get it wrong, Paul? Is that we all had it? Yeah. It's, I don't know, the Olympics every single session.
Yeah, absolutely. So like 90% of us get that aspect wrong. So there's got to be one or two of your listeners out there that could really just perk up the ears and just hear that. It's okay. Let's not go to the well in this session. Let's hit it, and let's cut off 1 or 2 before. And then let's repeat that again the next day. And that's just a far better strategy than going to the well on any of these sessions. Yeah.
How often should people do HIIT in a week's training, for example?
Yeah. Like, great question. And again, sorry to say it, but it's just so individual. So you could be an individual. We talked about the person getting off the couch. 1 small session might be all that they can handle in that week.
Yeah.
And but I can remember actually a conversation at Millennium in HBSNZ, and I was talking to John Walker's coach, and John Walker, a famous runner for New Zealand, and he would tell me, he came up and I was given a presentation to all the athletics coaches, and he piped up. He's an older fella, and he was saying, when I would coach John, he was doing HIIT sessions almost every day.
Oh my goodness!
So there you go, right? Like, so it's from 1 in a week to potentially every day in the world's best Olympians.
Yeah.
Right. So what's appropriate for that individual that's in front of you?
Yeah, I feel like when we think about what the elites do, it's almost like, in my head, I'm like, well, that's not applicable to me, because there is something about an individual that makes them that elite, like there is something special about our elite athletes, that they are actually complete. Like, I don't know, and you may feel differently, but I feel like they're outliers in almost all areas. I mean, and I'm not suggesting that they don't work hard, but because of course they do, but there's something special about them that puts that hard work with some sort of ability that then allows them to compete at that top level, which is different from, your age grouper.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. Well, and there's so many different things in the makeup of the person, or the phenotype, right?
Yeah.
So let's imagine, so maybe John Walker had, he's highly likely had a solid amount of slow twitch muscle fibers. And he would just, even though he's going incredibly fast in these HIIT workouts, he's doing them very oxidatively. He's probably burning a high percentage of fat with low byproducts, and not a massive amount of sympathetic central nervous system stress. And as a result, he does it with a smile on his face, and can back it up the next time, And of course, don't forget about the progression that it takes to get there as well, right? Like you don't get off the couch and start doing that. So yeah, they are special. But the other thing I've learned in coaching these individuals is that they are all human beings, just like you and me. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And if I don't want to do as much volume, is there room to do more HIIT? Is there reason to do more HIIT? Is there benefit in it? Like,
Yeah. I would say usually, because we looked at that. Many of us have probably heard of that polarized type training where you should. There's the recommendation that you should do about 80% of your training below your aerobic threshold. So in that your easy talk test kind of zone, and then 20% it can be done as moderate intensity exercise, threshold efforts, or HIIT.
Yeah.
But I would say that's only usually applicable if we're going over, say, up to 18, 20 hours of training in a week for like a triathlete sort of thing. So most of us aren't doing that. I'm certainly not.
No.
So yeah, you can, depending on the individual, probably tolerate more HIIT sessions if you're in a low volume kind of program, but you still have to really use common sense with your own context, right?
Yeah.
So if you're already super stressed and super fatigued and tired, and HIIT just isn't working for you on that day.
Yeah.
Listen to the body and do something else, right? Go rest or recover or go for a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that type 2 might be good for someone like me. Can you give me a couple of examples? What does that look like?
Sure. So type 2 session would, remember, so it's lever 1 aerobic.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the heart beating. We're going to get we're going to recruit some muscle fibers into so it's going to be done, your running context. So you'd be running fast. But your anaerobic level, second lever, is going to be low.
Yeah.
And the third lever, neuromuscular, is going to be high. So in your context, Mikki, I might have a session where we're going to do some hill running, and we're going to go out at, let's say, 20 seconds on hard up that hill. And then we might do, say, for example, 40 seconds off, and just kind of walk down recovery back to the starting place. So in that sort of situation, and the intensity should be above, again, so that we get a neuromuscular response. You should almost kind of be sprinting probably, or just below sprinting.
Yeah.
So not all out, but at 120% of VO2 max kind of effort. And you might do that for 20 seconds, but notice the pause ratio is 40 seconds. So there's lots of recovery time for lactate to be lower. And this is due to, sort of geek out on some physiology, but this is due to this really cool protein in our muscles called myoglobin. So the myoglobin with long pauses is able to resaturate fully. So even though you've exercised hard for 20 seconds, there's this 40-second period of time to, lower the blood lactate level and keep it actually still at probably around 4 millimoles. Okay. And but the heart will be beating quite fast. So the first one you won't see too much. The second one not too much either. But now you got the system kind of going, and if you actually measure your heart rate during that, you'll see that you are getting an aerobic response from this overall workout, and kind of it stays elevated, but lactate is low. Yeah. And you might do that 8 times, and then take a pause and just go for a little jog, and then you might do it another 6 times. Lots of ways to kind of do it, but that is a type 2 kind of session. So it would be maximal recruitment, preparing you for these hills that you're gonna have to do in your ultra. Yeah. But keeping lactate low and neuromuscular recruitment high.
Yeah. Okay. And I noticed in your athletica.ai system, you talk about using rate of perceived, which we're going to discuss in a minute, but which is almost like you taking the guesswork out of it really for us. So instead of me thinking, do I need to do type 2 and how long should it be? I put my details into your platform, and you basically tell me what I need to do, which is actually fabulous for anyone who needs, that kind of support, which is most of us. You use rate of perceived exertion as a way to sort of monitor how we feel about the sessions as well, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is so within the algorithms in the back. Now we're kind of talking about the load response.
Yeah.
So how would I describe the load response? So load is like stress on your body.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever you do any of these workouts that you're doing, whether it's an aerobic workout or an anaerobic workout, hard HIIT session, gym session, you're getting a stress on the body, and that stress is going to cause your system to be stressed, and then you'll rebound and adapt to it, right? So, and of course, we're all different to that stress that we're giving, and we're all different on a given day as well. Mm-hmm. So, being aware of what's called the load response, your response to the stress, has been found to be a very great indicator for coaches and practitioners to understand how much load and recovery you need the following days. And that's what the RPE, or the rating of perceived exertion, gets us insight into. So it's like our session rating of perceived exertion. How hard did you feel that session was?
Yeah.
And then we also use something called feel. So how did that session feel? Like you can have a hard session that feels really crappy, and you can have a hard session that, you can do a HIIT session, you're like, oh, I really nailed that. It felt great.
Yeah.
So that's also giving us a signal. And then again, if we're staying on Athletica, we also use a semantic analysis. So this is the Google juices and the bots and whatnot in the back of they can actually interpret what you're writing in your comments. I don't know how much coaching you do on Training Peaks, Mikki, but it's time consuming sometimes to read all the comments. Well, and sort of figure out an interpretation from what the person's saying. But that's again what we have with Athletica as well. Is we also interpret the comments, and then those three factors go into our algorithm and determine how much load is going to be applied in the next day, and what the next session should sort of be.
Yeah.
So does that describe what we're doing there?
Yeah, it does, because the with a lot of athletes don't put a lot of faith into how they feel. They put much more faith into what their heart rate does, what their peak power is. Even though with running, I know there are power meters for running, but they're not as well utilized and are maybe not as well studied as, say, cycling power meters. But but we oftentimes rely on that external data to provide us feedback from our session, not really thinking about, okay, well, how did I actually feel in that session? And that's why I really love RPE, because it's so simple and you don't require any real fancy sort of, equipment to be able to then apply it and use it really. But you just got to trust yourself that you sort of, that actually how you feel really does matter, and it should dictate what you do the next day, not what your heart rate says and whatnot. Even though obviously these things are aligned, you do get a heart rate response that will probably indicate what 8, 9 or 5 feels like on your RPE. But even just for people like me who like data, but I'm one of the laziest people in the world when it comes to it. Like can't really be bothered sort of analyzing it.
Most of us are that way too, and again, that's why we invented this program, is so we can still, because it's too time consuming and too who cares kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the coach should care. So and this is why we're creating this, is so it's like, so someone's kind of looking over you in terms of looking after your training, and because we all still want to perform well on race day, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We sign up for these sorts of things.
Yeah.
So if we can keep ourselves within some guide rails to keep us on track, well, that can be really beneficial, right? And again, the other thing I'll mention, like by using the wearables and stuff, then we get an indicator of what your ability is, whether that's the power on the bike and the or the speed of running and the heart rate response to that. And then when we have that and we can put that alongside the RPE feel comments, well, then it's giving a lot more richer insight into how good that session really was.
Yeah, for sure. And what I noticed when I was on there last week is that it is the changes in the session are almost in real time, like, so I did a session and then I'd jump on and then I would see that the session for the next day had changed in response to how I had perceived and what my heart rate was and what the session was like the day before. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool, actually. So it's pretty much, it gives you that coaching without necessarily having a coach. And I think, because a lot of us, I feel, particularly in running, feel like we're not good enough to have a coach. We don't warrant a coach. What we do isn't serious enough for a coach, but we still want to be coached. And so platforms like this allow that to happen, and sort of for us to have that without necessarily having not the buy-in, because we have the buy-in, but everything else that comes from having a coach, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's why we wanted to create it, because we wanted people to have a coach, or at least the services of a coach. And a lot of coaching is, in terms of price point as well, is inaccessible to many of us, right? So we wanted to invent something that has a price point that is accessible to the majority of us, and gives great insight into really some recommendations, some guidelines into what should be done the next day. But that being said, I will say that you always want to still, the computer is never going to know it all.
No,
you've got to use it in alignment with common sense.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I'm always saying.
And it's interesting because I, as a nutritionist, I see clients one-on-one, but I also have a platform, not unlike Athletica, but in the nutrition space, where I do meal plans for people, and then they have access to me to pick my brain as to how, even though mine doesn't have the IT behind it to be able to change a meal based on what someone says they've eaten, they have access to me to be able to sort of bounce, is this appropriate? I'm doing this. How do I need to change it? So they have my insights, but they also have a plan, a template plan, if you like. And the people that sign up for that aren't necessarily people who want to do a one-on-one with someone for whatever it might be cost. It might just be that actually they're really good at following a plan. That's all they really want from it. And I feel like that's the same with athletica.ai and other systems that might be out there that are like coaching systems. They're not necessarily there are a lot of athletes out there that would use it that would never go to a coach, so it's not like this is instead of a coach, is how I sort of saw it.
Yeah, well, for sure. And at the moment it's a replacement for a coach presently, but we are busy behind the scenes working on a coach version, because all of these features that we have, well, lo and behold, coaches want them too, right?
Totally.
Coaches want because it solves a lot of the problems for coaches in terms of looking after athletes. That's what it does. It kind of looks after the athlete and the load. I went to, remember the Training Peaks conference in 2015 that I was at, and that was the key question that coaches asked in the conference was they had their athletes were asking them, okay, now that my context changed, I couldn't do that workout. Can I make it up, coach? Well, they didn't really know the answer, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted that sort of solution, and that's what I piqued my interest. I remember those conversations at that presentation, and that's was one of the reasons why I really pushed forward to make this.
Yeah, and your knowledge and what you've put together with HIIT science and now Athletica.ai is something that coaches don't necessarily have a lot of access to either. So you're providing that access to them, because, I think about there are people who coach who come from that athletic background themselves, and they were former athletes or still current athletes, and then they want to sort of share their knowledge and understanding from that personal experience with their athletes. But this provides them with a tool that also gives them the scientific nous behind it, if you like. And of course they can learn it, and there are many courses like your HIIT science course where they can learn it, but it doesn't mean just because you know it that you necessarily have the knowledge to apply it. So it's sort of it's totally another tool.
Yeah, no, yeah, couldn't really add much more to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I am actually going to be talking to someone who had really good success on athletica.ai, Brianna Stubbs, who I knew in that kind of science geek world is because she's also a guru with ketone esters and the application of using ketones in a range of different sort of contexts. But that must have been like a really solid sort of indication of how successful AI can be.
Yeah, we were so stoked. We were so stoked when that happened for Brianna, and yeah, I mean, I'll let her tell the story. I believe you're going to be speaking to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, tune into that one, and it's pretty cool. She was, yeah, you know, I think she used Athletica as it's supposed to be used. Like you're supposed to, you know, curb your own sort of training into your own context. You probably can't take every single thing that Athletica is recommending all the time, at least not yet. And you got to, and that's kind of how she used it. But for the most part, the recommendations and the plan kept her on track. And it gave her a solution. She's been searching for a Kona spot for a long time, and we're just so privileged that she used our program to achieve that. So yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like it's only been live for 4 months, and we already got that result. So
amazing. Yeah.
It's cool. Keep it going.
So Paul, obviously I will put like links to HIIT Science and also to athletica.ai, which I believe that you are offering a 7-day trial so people can sort of go in and see what it's all about, which was awesome.
Yeah, totally. And people just reach out to me directly as well.
Awesome.
So just hello at athletica.ai. And if you've got any questions, and certainly get familiar with the platform too, just by doing the 7-day free trial. And we've also got a YouTube channel as well with lots of instructional and videos on there as too. So
awesome.
Check it out.
Awesome. I do want to ask you a few more questions just based on physiology, sort of HIIT and you know, responses to training. And obviously, a lot of my questions have been selfish, sort of, you know, I'm picking your brain for the things that I do. But sauna and cold water immersion, are you all over that, Paul? Is that something that you sort of use with regards to recovery or enhancing the cardiac response to training? Like, what are your thoughts on that stuff? And context is that I am loving the sauna right now. As sort of like going for a run and jumping in the sauna for sort of 20 minutes afterwards. And it's not an infrared. I've actually had a couple of infrared saunas over the last few weeks. But I feel like, and I heard Rhonda Patrick talk about it as well, is that uncomfortable feeling you get from a dry sauna, so not an infrared sauna, is in fact part of the adaptation response. And I don't feel the same after infrared as I do after the dry sauna, which is really interesting. But I'm also a big fan of that cold water immersion too. It doesn't get that cold in Auckland, to be honest, but, you know, you do what you can. So, you know, we talk about these adaptations that occur through, say, HIIT or training. Do you ever recommend that people add these things on as part of their training routine, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can. So if these are available to you, just like you're using in your context, then they're both fantastic. I think it's good to get too hot sometimes, and it's good to get too cold sometimes. And they're just seen throughout. You know, I guess ancestral health viewpoint is my bias, and I believe that humans got hot and they got cold throughout their evolution. So it just and all of the scientific research supports that there's benefits to having periods of time where you're hot and periods of time where you're cold. For just depending on the context. So trying to get a regular dose of both in your life, depending where you are, and it probably depends on the season as well. But yeah, if whatever you can do, kind of to get both, I think manipulating your body through into periods of hot and periods of cold, different times of day is a great thing. That's certainly something I practice. Yeah, as well.
I've seen a number of people now have the long chest freezer that they plug in and use that as their sort of cold water immersion. And I think it's such a great idea because it costs a lot of money to buy, it takes a lot of ice bags and therefore a lot of money to actually just, fill your bathtub. So I'm trying to convince Barry that that's what we need at home. He's yet to be convinced, but I don't know. I think I just need to give him some time for that one.
Definitely.
Yeah,
we're fortunate in Revelstoke. There's a ice-fed lake that's right across the street there. So
amazing! Right, that is lucky. Yeah. And the other thing is, Paul, you describe your diet as, obviously I know you as being LCHF, right? And you've just described it as a bit of a Nutrivore, sort of, a meat forward lean, if you like.
Yeah, for sure.
How does that fit with HIIT? Because you're always hearing that, and certainly there are people who do their F45 classes and they spend 45 minutes doing HIIT 6 days a week. And so obviously context matters, but with regards to diet and HIIT-based training within a sort of training program, like, are there any recommendations that you have around that you see work or see that are important?
Man, context, really depends. If Martin was talking here, he'd probably be talking about his professional football players, where he would manipulate the carbohydrate content for certain sessions with his nutritionist. But if you're, I kind of go back. I wonder why we're sort of doing that a bit. I think you can exacerbate the response of the session, make more mitochondria. Ultimately, there's some evidence that if you do the session a little bit more in a sort of a depleted state, and then some practitioners would argue, well, then you're not getting enough quality in it. But what is quality at the end of the day? Do you want to amplify the signal for adaptation, or do you want the maximal performance in a training session? For me, I want to amplify the signal, and I want to make sure that my athlete can come back and repeat that signal. So it's a tough one. And again, we also have to remember, in the LCHF carnivore context, we have this whole process called gluconeogenesis. So you've got this liver in your body, and it does a great job at producing carbohydrate for us in the recovery periods. And Jeff Volek and the FASTER study have shown in the muscle biopsies that the carbohydrate content, the glycogen content of the muscles, after overnight fast, is the same as someone that's pounding carbs, and that's because the liver is making carbohydrate out of fat and protein. That's its job. So I have no problems doing any sort of HIIT sessions, or any session for that matter, in fasted states, underfed states. I think it's a bit overblown in terms of really looking at that. But I really think the thing that people feel the most probably is the central nervous system effect of any carbohydrate that's kind of in the system, because carbs in general are sympathetic mobilizers. So they would heighten the system, and they make you feel a little bit more energized when you have them. So if that's going to help you and get you, allow you to feel better and get them a little bit more out of a session, then all the power to you, go for that. But if if you're like me, who's I guess been LCHF for 10 years now, I don't necessarily need to do that to feel good in a session. So just depends.
And that, what you say with regards to the length of time you've spent being LCHF, I hear that a lot. It is that adaptations continue to occur in ways which you sort of might not even be aware of, except for looking back at how you used to respond to sessions. You're like, actually, that's not happening to me anymore. I'm able to do this session much easier compared to, say, how I was 3, 4, 5 years ago. But and again, it comes back to what we were talking about with the collagen, the vitamin C. Like, these are anecdotes, or you hear case studies. These aren't large clinical trials, because they don't run large clinical trials looking at this. They run trials for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or they repeat a trial twice, but it's a 4-week trial, done twice. So it's not, you don't actually see those long-term adaptations to these different nutrition protocols and how they might impact in the long term. And
so true.
And
so true.
What you said about what I'm doing with 100K, that's going to be 14 hours for me. 13, 14 hours. That's a long time. And
you'll want to be a good fat burner.
Want to be a good fat burner. Absolutely. I'm looking at, I've got some Generation UCAN gels coming my way, actually.
Nice.
And I've got a bunch of their bars and powders and stuff to sort of play around with that stuff. But, and I also appreciate Jeff Rothschild's work looking at, using protein prior to exercise. So you don't dampen down that sort of signal, the molecular signal of AMPK and all the rest of it by taking on board fuel. So I'm sort of looking at things like that too.
Yeah, and I mean, anecdotally, that is a lot of my athletes are, when they're doing long kind of fasted rides. I guess they're non-fasted ultimately, but many of them will start with aminos in the system, and but not through a powder, but just a few eggs kind of thing before they go long. But then they won't really have anything throughout the whole ride. They just feel great. Yeah,
for sure. And I think a large part of the concern is that low energy availability, right? And so people often conflate LCHF with low calorie. And in fact, for a lot of people, it ends up being low calorie unintentionally, even because it does have that satiety effect where you just don't feel like eating as much. But if an athlete is wanting to get the most sort of bang for their buck with regards to this extended endurance stuff, then being a good fat burner is key. But actually just be mindful of that whole low energy availability thing and ensuring you're getting your calories in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, totally. I am talking to Herman Ponzer as well in a couple of weeks, all about his book Burn. I don't know if you've read or heard of that, Paul.
No, tell me more.
He's an anthropologist who's done his work looking at the HIIT population, and they did doubly labelled water trials to measure their energy expenditure. This was back in 2012, I believe, was their first study was published, in that they realised that the HIIT don't expend any more energy than what we do, which was a revelation at the time because they do so much more physical activity that they were anticipating that their overall energy expenditure is actually over and above that. They expected it to be 2, 3, 4 times the metabolic rate, but it's similar to the usual US population despite the number of physical activity that they do.
That's fascinating.
It is fascinating. So
it kind of just totally throws the whole calorie in, calorie out theory out the window, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It really puts a hole in it.
Yeah, it certainly does. And so there's a cap on how much energy that anyone can burn in one day, I think, and I've seen studies like that. But then, of course, you've got the Tour de France studies which say that these guys are burning 8, 9, 10, 12,000 calories a day in that trial. So, I'm really interested to talk to him about how his research sort of, how that sits with the other research that we know. And maybe the other studies I've seen of energy expenditure are predictive sort of equations are used rather than actually measuring. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. The thing I never get really about all these sorts of studies is that remember that how plentiful the whole store of fat, like the whole fat reservoir, there's just we've all of us, like the leanest individuals, you and me, we've got enough calories on board of us theoretically to march from Auckland to Dunedin, right? Like you could go for that run unaided in theory. Like that's the tank that sits there in terms of energy. To me, it's accessibility of that energy that's probably the problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and this is where I think some of the challenges come with our mainstream approach to nutrition, which might be a little bit more carb dominated, therefore insulin dominated, therefore lacking accessibility to that large reservoir. I'm not sure if that just conflicts some of the findings and theories that are sort of out there. But that's when I'm sort of thinking about it, I'm always thinking about the nutrition that's going to maximize the accessibility to that reservoir and then the repletion of, I guess, all of the nutrients that are going to make the person.
No, that's good. Now, one final thing, which is actually back on HIIT, very briefly, Do we know if there are any sex differences on these HIIT adaptations, Paul? Like, do women respond differently?
I would say not really. Like, we're all like the fundamentals. So women have fast twitch muscle fibers. They can recruit those. So no difference there. But, again, think of the individual. Women have hearts and cardiac output, so no difference there. So that's still the same sort of response. Women have blood lactate response, often not as great. Women tend to be better fat burners than men, but again, we're generalizing, and everyone's an individual. Same with the neuromuscular response. All of that's the same. The one thing that might be a little bit different is the cycle, right? Like, so you've got so potentially the timing of the HIIT workout around the activation of the central nervous system of the female could be a little bit different. I think there's anecdotal evidence there that timing of that session could be optimal in certain times of the month than others. But you as a woman would probably be more insightful there as to when you feel like doing HIIT versus not. But I think everyone's probably all individual as well there too. It's the same with race performance too. Like, I mean, I coach a lot of women, and they don't want to be having the race when they're menstruating, right? So that's they like, if they're they're lining up on the calendar and it's like, oh shoot, they're Kona's on that day, like they're not happy about that sort of situation necessarily. So, and I think hits a little bit with that, where there's a little bit of timing on that. There's also some evidence that the period of ovulation, so it's going to be a very short window, but that's tends to be very good if you can time that for personal bests in women. But we're talking more central nervous system things here, so not from a physiological, like not from the most part. Is what I'll sort of say.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think what you've said, I would agree with, is that every woman is different as to how they experience their cycle, So there are women who get through each month and are like, oh, it's my period again. That's right. Because they're not that aware, because there's no reason to be aware, because nothing changes for them. Whereas there are other women who feel very differently week in, week out. And Lara Bride and I talked about this as well, just with regards to, you make changes if changes need to be made, if like you would any athlete. And then from a nutrition standpoint for a woman, there are things that can be done to help minimize that central nervous system response, or minimize the bloating, or minimize the, all the other symptoms that she experiences. So she has a bit of a smoother ride, which would then mean that the timing of these things might not be as much of an issue than if it was if she wasn't putting into place these other kind of nutrition recommendations around her cycle. That's interesting. Nice. Yeah.
No, and that's great. Yeah. So as we're always saying, context, right?
Yeah.
So for sure. So you've got, if I accidentally prescribe a HIIT workout to one of my female athletes at that time, and sometimes they'll delete or move in accordance with how they know they're going to feel.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do.
Yeah, totally. However, what you did just say about how they know they're going to feel, because there is good sort of, there is data out there to show that whole psychological aspect, which was what you just mentioned as well, can play a large part in how we feel. Much as I was talking about with how my head feels about doing 100K versus doing 50K, so much of it is up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting stuff, Paul. Hey, look, now can we finish off, because you and Phil Maffetone came on and chatted about the perfect storm. So you guys were, some of the very early publishers of literature in and around our metabolic health with COVID-19, and the importance of it for helping with regards to keeping us resilient, if you like, against that or any sort of illness or infection. And it's over a year since you've published that paper, I think, Paul. So
that was 2020.
Yeah.
It was, we got on it really quick, right?
Yeah.
We sort of saw it happening.
Yeah.
because it was a hot topic, and it was published in April of 2020 in Frontiers in Physiology. It got lots of exposure, and I think at that time, basically we called it the perfect storm because we were looking at this new novel coronavirus coming into the world, and we were also looking at the other pandemic of the world, which is we call overfat. Basically, it's just having too much fat on your body, which impairs your metabolic health. So, and the reason that's a bad thing is because your metabolic health controls your immune system, which is the fundamental fighter of any coronavirus or anything that's going to kind of be foreign to us. And we were basically just saying this is a problem, and it's going to affect especially those who are over fat, obese, overweight, or those who are old, because this is ultimately it's sort of the same thing. The health of your metabolic health deteriorates in all of us. There's nothing we can do about that. It's just as we age chronologically, we can do things about it, which is all the things we talk about, but inevitably our metabolic health just deteriorates through the process of aging and the cycle of life. And that's ultimately what the paper sort of showed. And we thought, the world's going to wake up and everyone's going to get really healthy, and everyone's going to focus on getting adequate vitamin D now. And we thought, maybe the New York Times would pick up our paper. Nothing, crickets. And it was just, it's been a really strange year in North America, Mikki. If I'm being honest, as we started, I'm over here in Canada. And things have, especially in the last little while, have gotten a little bit weird. I don't know what's going on down in New Zealand. But,
well, certainly from the focus on health perspective, like, we are no different in New Zealand as to what you've just described in North America with regards to the importance that is being placed on metabolic health in regards to COVID, given that it has been absolutely turned the world on its head. You and I started off our conversation off air, and I was telling you that I was watching The Handmaid's Tale, and which is this dystopian sort of universe. It was written by Margaret Atwood, who is your fellow countrywoman, actually. I believe she's Canadian. And it's that, there's this second civil war in America, which means that there are only 2 states left as America. Everything has changed. And I was watching some of the scenes on it, and not to get political on it, but there were people protesting against it, and then people just being shot, because they were protesting against the people that had overtaken the government and things like that. And I just thought, it's a weird thing to feel that you're sitting here watching this, and 2 years ago would be like, oh God, that'll never happen. This is like completely, this is obviously a story. But then in light of the events of the last year, I'm watching this scene going, that's not too different from what I was hearing that was going on in America last year with regards to not COVID related, but other political sort of things coming to the fore.
The left versus right sort of stuff.
Yeah, the left versus right sort of stuff. And then if I don't know, I sort of tangent on that, but if I go back to, what the focus is here in New Zealand, it's about wearing masks and getting a vaccine. There is absolutely nothing out there from any kind of public health authority to say everyone should be taking vitamin D, particularly given that it's winter, are you getting enough sleep? What are we doing to support the health of our vulnerable? There is still no conversation around health at all.
I'm confused. Something seems really, really, really odd in the world. So and I mean, I don't recognize the Canada that I'm in at the moment, if I'm honest. So it's are
you locked down still, Paul? What's your situation?
Well, I'm in British Columbia. We're in one of the better provinces in terms of the whole lockdown thing. But, I think there's still a mask mandate in the stores in the summertime. And again, remember, there's the evidence to suggest that masks are beneficial to prevent spread in asymptomatic individuals, like asymptomatic individuals, someone that isn't shedding the virus. So you've got snot coming out of your system. Like there never has been, and there still isn't any benefit, like any reason why a mask in an asymptomatic individual who's not going to spread anything, is of any benefit other than, preventing communication and across individuals and preventing the transfer of emotional intelligence, how people are feeling. It almost seems a little bit sinister.
It's interesting. I had a chat to Julia Ruckledge, which will likely be published before this episode is published. It's not published yet, but she was in the UK because her father had passed, and then came back and when we talked, she was in isolation in Christchurch. She said that in the UK, everyone was, they'd just come out of lockdown when she was there, and everyone was really hypervigilant, like very on edge, and also masked. And, what do we know about humans and social connection? It's one of the foundations of health. And to kind of walk around in this sort of hypervigilant state, being suspicious of people around you that might be sick, or that you could catch something from them, to be masked, to again not be able to convey that emotion and that feeling and the connection, like that is, that's a hard place for people to be, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And don't forget, stress also doesn't enhance your immune system.
No.
It depresses your immune system. So all of the actions, while curbed as being good intent, are in fact making the situation worse. Whether it's lockdown, not seeing other humans, and even spreading germs is actually a healthy aspect. And there's a learning that actually happens in the immune systems and whatnot. Yeah, right? Especially our young individuals. Who have very powerful immune systems. Well, that's how herd immunity kind of develops, right? Because they can fight these sorts of things off. And we're masking our children in schools here, and locking them down so they can't be around one another. It all seems very wrong, Mikki. And this information isn't widely known, because there's the other thing that's happened, and this has happened to me. So I've been, I made a comment on Facebook and I was deplatformed. I wrote a letter to the editor in my local town on some of this stuff, and it went through as much peer review as you can imagine in terms of a letter to the editor. It was actually co-written by a reporter in the town, edited by his editor, and then it went to head office in Kelowna, where it was titled as being misinformation. So it was really just more of the stuff that Phil and I have mentioned, plus some of these other things that I'm, all backed up, well-referenced article. But it was misinformation. So that wasn't even allowed to actually be published in our local paper. And you can imagine that small story multiplied, hundreds of thousands of times around the world. And it's a very strange world that we're in.
Yeah, for sure. So Paul, what's your advice then? Okay, so that's my question. Like, if these are things which you think people should be concerned about, what's your advice to people to sort of find out more?
The key thing we really should be looking at, and everyone should be doing their own research on this. Look outside mainstream, I would recommend, if you can. And I would what's mainstream's solution for the coronavirus? It's not what Phil and I were mentioning with the perfect storm, where you're looking at your vitamin D levels, you're building your immune system through diet and nutrition. It's nothing of that. It's get the jab. That to me is something we should all just kind of stand up and just have a think about. Is that really the best solution? that we should be looking towards? It seems like, that's what we're being told, but is that really the right thing? So, if you haven't had the jab yet, I would, before you wind up and get in line for that, I would just try to do a little bit of research outside of maybe what mainstream's telling you there. So that would be the main message. It's certainly not what Phil and I recommend.
Yeah.
I think we've all got really strong immune systems, and we can beefen those immune systems through vitamin D diet. And there's treatments for coronavirus. It's despite what we hear. It's there's a 1% mortality, less than 1% mortality rate, a 99% plus chance of survival in this, and that 1% is usually in the 70 to 80 plus category, who are old, or they're in the overfat, obese individuals who are metabolically unhealthy. So certainly not our children, who are also now able to get a vaccine without informed consent, at least in Canada here, which is just unheard of in history.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, because there are people who have had COVID and had a terrible experience that wouldn't be old, and they're not on the surface metabolically unhealthy. I think about some of the people that I follow, who some people were, they got it, they had a sniffle, they lost their taste for 2-3 days, then they got over it. But then there are other people who have been severely impacted by it, but on the face of it, both of these sort of individuals I'm thinking of would sort of be in very similar camps with regards to their health and well-being. But obviously something's different with individuals and how they sort of tolerate it.
Absolutely. Well, we never really know really what's under the hood, do you?
Yeah,
in terms
true.
of your overall metabolic health, we're all kind of guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe we're healthy, maybe we're not as healthy, and but I still believe that the response that you're getting is a reflection of your health. Yeah, I know lots of people that have gotten as well. I'm pretty sure it went through our family here as well.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if it's gone through your family, that is
immunity.
That's an immunity. That's you have no reason to line up for the to get the jab. Why would you you've actually just had the best immune situation, right? Like you're programmed for a long time to have innate immunity to future bouts and runs in with the COVID-19.
It's interesting you say, why would anyone get the jab? And the reason why people would get the jab is because their ability to do the things that they want might be severely compromised if they don't.
Well, so what are the things that you have to, what are they saying in New Zealand? I have no idea. So tell me, what's the situation there? Why should you get the jab in New Zealand?
And I think that it's more what we expect will happen is that you will need the jab in order to travel. And it's not, it's not. And we haven't had that. That isn't the message. That's not what's being said, but it's not necessarily what New Zealand says. It's like other countries that we might travel to, like the States or like Canada. They might not let us in. We may not be able to come and swim in that lake right down by your house, Paul, if we don't get a jab. And I think these are the potential sort of I guess concerns from that, again, that sort of political perspective rather than from a health perspective, because it's interesting. Most people I know are not afraid of getting COVID, like that's just, because maybe it's because we're all believe that we're in that metabolic health. That means that we would be the 2 or 3 days out and then sort of back to it.
Yeah.
But
I'm not afraid to get it either. But based on, again, what Phil and I wrote, my knowledge of that, I am afraid to get the jab because I'm starting to wonder, is there something in that jab that maybe doesn't belong in my body? Why? Yeah. So, and there's some evidence that's kind of coming out that, because they're giving you that spike protein in that jab. That comes, it's what's called the target antigen. And that does go into all of the jabs, all 6 of them. And I think, just came out with Dr. Brian Bertle from the University of Guelph. He's been the most, I guess, outspoken virology professor in Canada. He's kind of our leader. He's pro-vaccine, just to be very clear. He's not anti-vax. This is what he does. He develops vaccines and does the research for that. He's funded by the taxpayers of Canada. He's on NSERCs, and he's also he's here for the public, because it's our taxpayer paying dollars are paying him to be truthful and honest. And he's saying he's now privy to the biodistribution data that came out of Japan and from Pfizer. And they are showing that it's just in one study in rats, but basically it's showing that the spike protein that's in the Pfizer vax is not staying in the deltoid of, at least in those rats, and it's leaching into the rest. It's a good model. It's still a good model to use, but it's leaching into the rest of the tissues. And that spike protein, which is what makes us all very sick, is what actually causes, it's a toxin ultimately. So if it goes into any of the other tissues, and some of the tissues that's been detected in those rats include the ovaries, the spleen, the adrenals, and most alarmingly is the cardiac tissue. So all of the blood vessels ultimately. So and that's I guess what's alarming there is the potential for effects that might not appear necessarily related to getting the jab per se, but just natural occurring events like stroke and cardiovascular disease, or any other potential medical problem that you might have in the future. Because it might not be right away that you have that problem. It might not be an acute effect, but it might be more of a chronic effect. So,
and how do you know that over time? Like that's exactly the type of thing which just these things occur naturally, as you say, anyway. So there's no way to know that this is actually a problem for us.
You're right.
Which is the problem, really, isn't it?
That's the problem.
Yeah. Has this paper been well received? Like, what's been the sort of the thoughts and feelings around it in your sort of neck of the woods?
Yeah, well, it's more of he came on a radio interview in Canada and came out with it because he was quite alarmed when he saw the data. So he was all preprint, right? I mean, everything's happening so fast. These vaccines were rolled out so quickly. And this is just relatively recent data. And it was like a 5-minute snippet on a radio program, but it went viral. And since then, there's been a massive smear campaign that's been put up against the professor. And he's got a fake Twitter account that's been put up. Oh. He's not even on social media, but now apparently he is. And he's had threats against his life, and it's lots of censorship.
Yeah. So, Wow, Paul. Well, that's really
not a happy one to end on.
Not a happy one to end on. No. Well, hey, look.
Sorry, but hey, the key message is, folks, just please do your own homework and your own research on this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Paul, you are like one of the most reasonable people that I've met, and I've always really valued your opinion and your advice in and around just all things, obviously training, nutrition. So, that obviously transfers to other areas. So you're not an unreasonable individual, I think is what I'm trying to say. So people will take from it what they will, but if they're interested, then it's good to sort of know that there are others out there who might have similar sort of thoughts and feelings. Sometimes people quite like that anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
sure. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay well, everyone.
Absolutely. Now I'm just about to go and do a 5K park run. What kind of HIIT session will that be, Paul? I'm going to run to warm up there, do it, and come back.
Wow, sounds like a low intensity, steady state L1, L2 kind of fat burning session. Probably.
Although my heart rate will jump from 60 to 170 in about 2 minutes and just stay there.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
interesting, right? I talked to James O'Keefe about it, the cardiologist, and he was like, don't even worry, you're just an outlier. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to take that and go. It's one of the really interesting things of my physiology. There you go, Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll say. Yeah. What's your max heart rate?
Max heart rate, I think max I've seen is maybe 183.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've had to change all my zones on Garmin.
You hang out on a steady state exercise at 170?
Yeah, like 116, maybe 165. And I can have a conversation and it feels like super easy, which is the interesting thing.
You're super. You're a diesel.
You're
for sure a diesel.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that bodes well for my 100 kilometers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Paul, thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. And so where can people find you?
You can find me probably, if you put my name in, I've got a little bit of a website. If you want to get in touch with me, it's got all my, paullaursen.com.
Cool.
And it's got a contact form. So get in touch with me through that. And you can see all my projects, Athletica and HIIT Science on there.
Brilliant. And are you taking coaching clients right now? Are you full up?
Just some, elite individuals.
So
just professionals and those that can afford me, Mikki.
Brilliant.
Otherwise, use Athletica, and I promise to help you, get your Athletica account out, and you can ask me questions every once in a while. So that's a inexpensive way to use my coaching services.
That's fantastic, Paul. You've got all the options. Thanks so much, Prof.
Pleasure. Thank you, Mikki.
All right, team, hopefully you enjoyed that. I certainly did, and it was great to catch up with Paul after about 9 months and just to sort of see where he's at, where things are at with him in Canada, and sort of his plans for the future. And you'll know that I chatted to Brianna Stubbs, actually, that came out a couple of weeks ago, and she is currently using the athletica.ai platform to help build her training in and around her Kona campaign. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And next week on the podcast, those of you who listen to Fitter Radio will remember that Paul Laursen, Prof, always came along with Plews, who is Dan Plews. And Dan has been on the show before. And this time, Dan and I have a good old conversation, just the two of us, answering your questions that we got from his Enduro IQ audience. And we just have a good old conversation. So I thought it would be quite fun to have the Prof and the Plews sort of side by side in subsequent weeks of the Mikkipedia podcast. Until then though, you can catch me over on Facebook at Williden Nutrition, on Twitter and Instagram at Williden, where I'm just sort of doing my day-to-day thing, or over on my website Mikkiwilliden.com, where you can sign up to any number of my online nutrition plans. Monday's Matter though is closed. We're into week 3 now, and it's all, everyone's gone through their first fortnight when the main construct of the plan sort of rolls out, and things are going great. But you can catch Monday's Matter again in the new year. So once the spring edition sort of wraps up, I'll be working on finalising the new year plan, which I'm already excited about. But anyway, I do have my athlete plan, my keto longevity plan. I do have my evergreen fat loss plans for both men and or women. And if you're wanting to support the podcast, signing up to my recipe platform Access, which provides you with access to my members only Facebook group where we do a weekly forum. You can pick my brain on any of your nutrition related questions, and you get access to my recipes, which I'm updating on a weekly basis, which is something that I really enjoy doing. And that's just a great way to support the podcast and also connect with me. Or if you're in the market for an individual consultation, you can also book on my website as well. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. And until next week, guys, have a fab week. See you later.